What are Chill Aoife's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. To begin, Aoife's going to be a very solid taser driver. Yep, that's right. If you're somebody that was hoping he would work with Autoron, then you're in luck. That is indeed going to be the case. He does what you'd expect a taser driver to do. Act as the on-field animo, dealing animo damage, while helping to proc more reactions throughout the entire team, while offering swirls, which can be really nice if you equip said animo and 4-piece Viridescent Venerer. We already have plenty of taser drivers at this point, so you kind of get the drill. But Aoife's a nice one, since he's capable of doing some of his own damage contributions, even if they aren't all that impressive, and he's easy to build. So this cool cowboy is going to be able to assist you with all of your taser-based needs, if that's something you're interested in. I should mention how he buffs the swirl damage and electrocharge damage of teammates, meaning that he makes the reaction stronger during gameplay too, which is cool, and he buffs up his own damage contributions, so he'll be a solid bet to go for if you're in need of such qualities. Also, this means that he'll be super easy to get going. Taser drivers are all just EM bots, so you can slap the guy on triple EM, and he'll be ready to start helping you out. I can see a team comp of the Chill Cowboy Lad, Lady Farina, Yelan, and Autoron being really good for him. Otherwise, this does feel a bit silly to list as a pro, but because of Mizuki's release, I do have to list this as a pro. He's able to use Xingqiu, Yelan, and any other procs-based character. I mean, wow, what a shocker. That feels like it should be extremely standard for any animo taser driver, but speaking of standard, yeah, the 5-star animo that was designed for Taser Mizuki isn't able to normal attack during her Dream Drifter state, so she just kinda floats around, not being able to proc Yelan or Xingqiu, completely locking out those team options unfortunately. Lady Farina is best in slot anyway, but you see, considering that our dearest Hydro Archon is such a highly contested unit in so many teams, it's more ideal if you're able to free her up for some of our use cases where our damage bonus percent buffs would be more highly appreciated. Taser teams are very free-to-play friendly by nature. They're very low investment in terms of what they demand when it comes to artifact investment, as most of the time, you're just dumping EM on your units, or using sub-DPSs that only need really mediocre crit stats in order to get going. So being able to proc a unit like Xingqiu is pretty important for a taser driver, because most people that are going to be playing this team as one of their primary endgame options are doing so because of the cost effectiveness. Aoife is a 4-star, so that only aids the situation. I'm not going to pretend like C6 4-stars are easy to get. No, they're not. But if you do manage to land even a single copy of him, you'll then be able to access some nice taser teams. I'd say that for low commitment teams such as this, you want to be able to use as many units as possible, so that you can be as flexible to as many accounts as possible. This is somewhat of a double-edged sword. Yes, he can indeed use procs-based units, but there's a catch. We'll touch on that a little later. Next up, we should discuss how Aoife's gonna be able to heal. At this point, is anybody surprised? I mean, I'm not overly surprised. Lady Farina is one of the most owned units in all of Genshin Impact. That's not brand new news to literally anybody. However, goodness me, they really went out of their way to give as many units as possible healing capabilities in the name of fanfare synergy, huh? Well, yes indeed, that is the case. Aoife can act as the team's sole healer, meaning that if you do opt to run Lady Farina in his comps, he'll be able to sustain fanfare generation all by himself. Now, like I stated earlier, chances are you're going to want to run Lady Farina in some of her teams anyway, but whether you're running Aoife with her or not, at least it's going to make the lad feel a whole lot comfier to play. It's a nice bonus more than anything else, and it's baked into his regular gameplay as an animo driver. Besides, it's pretty fitting for this vet to have healing capabilities. That's another pro of his actually. He takes care of animals. I don't know about you, but anybody who's nice to animals is a big green flag to me. This next pro isn't really meta-related, but Aoife's gonna have some nice exploring with his little bird buddy being able to fly him around the place. This is pretty much a given for any Natlan unit, but it does mean that if you end up running into a copy of Aoife, if you choose to pull for him or either of the upcoming 5-star units, you can even use him for just getting around the place even if his gameplay doesn't particularly interest you. Alrighty, as much as I do enjoy this handsome cowboy lad, it's not all yeehaw with him. There are indeed quite a few flaws to speak of in regards to Aoife, and to be honest, he's not really all that good of a unit. First off, Electrocharged is naturally a very inherently AOE-Locked archetype. Now of course, Autoron does make this a lot better. However, he doesn't single-handedly save the fact that Aoife is a driver of a low-cost archetype that isn't all that impressive compared to today's modern options. Not to mention that you can always turn to literally any of the 5 zillion other AoE team options that we have these days if the Abyss is seriously that AoE favored. We basically never get AoE show content anymore, and when we do, it's a very rare occasion. It's only ever dished up for the sake of shilling weaker units, or characters that heavily rely on their grouping in order to be valuable. Plus, usually when we do get AoE show content, a lot of trash mobs are involved, which most characters are able to take care of anyway. There are some extreme cases, like the current 11.3.2 containing 60 small trash mobs that really want grouping to be dealt with effectively. Okay, that was a pretty extreme move on Hoyo's end. However, typically speaking, the Abyss doesn't cater itself to such circumstances. You're more often than not going to be fighting bosses or 2 to 3 target scenarios. Having some teams to deal with AoE scenarios is good, of course. However, you have much better options to choose that are of a similar cost level, such as Dendro teams, so the incentive to use Aoe in specific isn't very high. Escoffier being the premier 5-star release this patch doesn't fuel me with much faith in regards to the future of AoE in the Spiral Abyss either, primarily because she's going to be helping units such as Ayaka survive in a far more single-target-centric meta, whereas previously, they suffered more. Freeze in general really suffers these days, seeing as the reaction just has such little bearing in today's meta. Even Freeze Ganyu is going to be benefiting heavily from Escoffier's release. You get the idea. All new Natlan units have been primarily single-target-based DPSs, and Escoffier is helping old AoE units adapt to single-target. So unless it's a Venti-Shell Abyss, you really shouldn't expect Aoe's Taser teams to be the center of attention. Next up, Aoe also really wants a fellow Natlan unit on his team in order to access electrocharged and swirl damage buffs. That's because he wants Night Soul points in order to gain more Rescue Essential points, which is what offers his electrocharged and swirl damage buffs. This is the double-edged sword that I mentioned earlier, because while he's not as restrictive as the likes of Brickzuki, he does really want to be played alongside Autoron. This also hurts his cost effectiveness, since it means that if you don't have him to help out, his performance is going to feel pretty gimped. Still, while I do believe his situation to be more ideal as opposed to Mizuki, I don't think that Aoe is completely off the hook either, since he does still want his buddy next to him to be utilized to the fullest. Sure, you can use him without Autoron, but at that point, why not just use somebody like Sucrose instead? Or any of the other 5 zillion Taser drivers that we already have in this game? Ah yes, that's right. Speaking of which, Aoe has a lot of competition, man. Like, we have a lot of Animo drivers at this point. This seriously isn't a niche that we were lacking in. So far, Natlan has done a really good job at filling in niches that we were previously lacking in. If not that, then they would at least upgrade upon previously existing archetypes. However, sadly, Aoe doesn't really seem to be a major upgrade to the Taser archetype. Sure, he provides some fun little benefits, and he can offer you a little bit of extra damage contributions, but there's not really any need to go out and get Aoe specifically if you really want to play Taser to the fullest. We have far better cheap options for the archetype. If you insist on playing this archetype in the modern day, then Sucrose is a much better Animo driver for you to turn to. If not her, then you could even play freaking Hazo or Lanyan as Animo drivers for Taser as well. This really isn't a character archetype that we are lacking in. Besides, it's not just Animos that can drive Taser. Raiden Shogun is getting a banner in 5.6, and she can also drive the archetype via double Hydro if you so choose. Otherwise, Clorox Bleach can use Autodome pretty effectively as well, even if you'd rather use the Yonsan with her. Point is, you have a lot of options, and there's nothing that Aoe is really doing to stand out from the competition right now. It's an oversaturated, low-demand niche. Autodome did way more to make the reaction feel relevant again as opposed to Aoe, who's just sorta there. Now, don't get me wrong, he looks very cool just being there. I think he's a real neat cowboy. However, sadly, no matter how cool I think he looks, his meta value is unfortunately just quite low. There are countless options for this unremarkable archetype. Your strongest method of playing Taser would be to slap Autodome with 4-piece Intercity alongside a strong Electro DPS that's able to dish out high numbers. Something like Clorox Bleach, Autodome, Lady Farina, and Shilonen, that type of thing. Yet once again, you could always shove Yonsan in place of the edgy emo guy, so there's little reason to play him in particular. And it's not like Electrocharge is what's doing the carrying at that point, it's just sort of a byproduct. It's not like he even enhances gameplay in any especially meaningful way, so you're not getting some crazy fresh experience of him entering the picture. It really is a shame. I like his design a lot, and I'm still gonna build him anyways because I really vibe with what Hoyoverse put together here. However, he's definitely not a strong unit by any means. He'll certainly work, don't get me wrong, but he's offering nothing new to the table. He's one of the first Natlan-based releases to truly just feel like he's not doing anything new. Seems like Hoyo's really been hating on all the Taser units during 5.x, huh? And it's just so unfortunate because I feel like there is something they could have done to try and make a better Animo Taser driver. They could have given him some interesting buffs, or maybe given him some sort of unique gimmick that would have made him especially worth using, because as it currently stands, what reason do you have to use Aoe over the likes of Sucrose other than just, you think Aoe is cooler? Which, fair enough, I would agree with you on that, but meta-wise, what's the point? Now, don't get me wrong. Anything's better than Mizuki, and at least they made his gameplay more involved than hers, even if just by a little bit. Thank goodness. But being better than C0 Mizuki seriously isn't all that impressive when you break it down, because my guy, that unit is quite frankly not very good. Aoe's mostly saves by actually being able to function alongside procs-based characters, yet even that doesn't entirely save him. It's a shame since I think this guy's one of the best looking Natlan units there is. Both him and my goats Kenichi and Hao. Wow. Both of my favorite Natlan units got done dirty. Huh. I mean, in different ways, but it's a shame. Well, hey, what can we do? In any case, I'll be building him anyway, since I don't know about you, but I genuinely really like his design aesthetic. Looks really nice. And even if he's not a very impressive unit, I'll certainly play around with him a little bit. But what about you? Are you interested in Aoife, or is it looking like a total skip to you? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturdays, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video is able to tell you Aoife's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and I find it funny that my two favorite Natlan units both have little creatures following them around. Silly coincidence, huh?